In Surah Ra'd, Surah number 13, ayah number 11, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna Allah la yughayyiru ma bi qawmin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, indeed, Allah will not change the condition of a community or a people until and unless they make the change inside themselves. Now, we just went through a political election, right? And there were some results, some people liked it, some results, some people didn't like it. There's a lot of stuff going on overseas, which causes a lot of consternation and a lot of what I would call depression or disappointment, where people have actually given up hope. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this ayah in particular is talking about the fact that any individual or community will not be allowed to change by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala until and unless they make the change inside themselves, inside their soul and inside their heart first. Now, it is interesting when you look at it that way, that there are certain things that we should look at community, but before that we should actually look at our own selves inside and see what are the actions or habits or things that we need to do first to improve ourselves so we can be successful in our life. And if we can be successful in our life as an individual, then we can make a positive change and impact to the community. And these are certain habits that I will talk to you about today. These are lessons that I learned very early in my career, right, when I was, doing a job, of course, right? But, there's certain habits and practices I picked up. And then, I'll try to bring some of these habits in light with the Quran and the Hadith from our Holy Prophet Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And also from Nahjul Balagha from Imam Ali to reinforce some of these things as far as what I'm talking about today. Now, when it comes to an individual, we have what you would call 3 levels of maturity. The first level of maturity is what you would call the dependent phase. I am dependent. When I'm born, I'm dependent on my parents, right? I am dependent on somebody's emotional support. I'm dependent on somebody's validation of me. So I'm always looking for somebody. So if something goes wrong, then I can blame this other individual for my success or failure. That's kind of the first level of maturity. It's called the dependent phase. Now in US, right, everybody strives to be independent, right? That's their goal in life, right? As soon as the kids grow up from home, they want to be independent, right? And then it's all about me. What can I do about me, right? So then that's the next phase, which is called the ultimate goal in a capitalist society, or even in the today's worldly environment. We always see everything is about me. So that's the second phase, which is called the independent phase. The third level of maturity is something that Quran and Ahlul Bayt and everybody emphasize about, is called the interdependence phase. The interdependent phase is where you are an individual, but you're also part of a community, you're also part of a family, you're part of a group, where everything you're doing is where you are synergizing and bringing things to the fore, where you are bringing everybody's skill set and trying to bring everybody up. And that's called the third level. That's why, in Islam, right, everybody is called a brother or sister to each other. Right? We generally don't try to individualize somebody. Even in namaz, for example, right? We say, "Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in." We worship you. I don't say I worship you. So that's the third level of maturity that we are going to talk about. Now, a lot of times in the dependent phase, it's kind of, some of the things we do is where we actually look for other people's validation. So we look at, if something goes wrong, I need somebody to blame. You didn't do this for me, so that's why you're the reason for my failure. If the political environment didn't come to my liking, then I'm going to blame you. I'm going to blame somebody else, right? And so that's the part that we need to rise above, but not on the independent phase. We actually need to rise above where we are in the interdependent phase. Now, there are certain habits, right, that we need to start cultivating as a community, but first of all, we need to start cultivating some habits internally amongst ourselves. The first and foremost is a hadith I'll quote from Najul Balagha, where Imam Ali says, O people, as far as your affairs are concerned, right, you have to move and act. So you always have to be in the state of motion and move and act, and in success be grateful, and in failure be patient. Now, that means that you have to take responsibility for your reactions to your own experiences, which also means, in a simple manner, is that I need to be proactive versus reactive. If somebody does something to me, between my ear and my eyes is my brain, which is determining what my reaction to that action is. I can react negatively to that action, or I can react positively to that reaction. It's up to me, because I'm the one choosing how to react to certain situations around me. And that's why I was talking about the political environment or things going outside our control. The first and foremost is, when Allah says you fix your inside first, your inside first comes with your reaction to things happening around. So that comes with where, instead of being the recipient of somebody's action, you need to start being proactive. If I was giving a simple example at my home, right, where my children were eating dinner, and then there was a glass on the table, right, and I told my son, being proactive means you pick up the glass and put it away before your mother gets a chance to actually tell you to pick up the glass and put it away. That's the difference, being proactive and reactive. A proactive person will always be 2 steps ahead of the person who's always reactive. And that's a very important habit to have in our life, where whenever we get a chance to take an initiative to do something positively and improve our situation, we should always jump on it first, and that's the first thing we should do without even actually thinking about it. Because that's called being proactive, right? And then, the second part is being responsible for your actions. If something goes wrong, you own the responsibility rather than being reactive about it. I used to work at GE, right? One of the problem solving techniques they used to talk about was that when something goes wrong, instead of figuring out who did it, why it happened, why didn't it happen, who caused it, what went wrong, the first thing you focus on is actually going and fixing what the issue is first. You will have all the time in the world to postmortem that situation later on. But you need to focus on what that issue is going on. That's called being proactive. You fix the issue first, then you worry about other things. And you always don't wait for somebody else to come do it for you. You need to take the initiative and do it yourself. Be the first one to respond and do something versus be the recipient of somebody's action, or be the recipient of somebody's action and be reactive, whether it's with your emotions or whether it's with your actions. So you always need to be proactive first. The second habit is in the Quran. Allah says, whoever desires the hereafter and strives for it as he ought to strive for it, he is a mu'min, he's a believer. And as for those, their striving will be surely appreciated. Now, when you look at this ayah, it actually is emphasizing that you need to actually have a goal. Because if I don't have the goal for Jannah or getting close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, my actions are all going to be fruitless, or I'm just going to be meandering around without any purpose in life. Last week I talked about when somebody's nearing death and somebody tells you you're about to die, the people who have a purpose in life actually react to death much more differently than people who had no purpose in life altogether. And this goes not only for achieving the hereafter, but also in this dunya. Anytime you start something, even if you go to a company, you always see there's a vision statement and there is a mission statement. Right? Nobody does anything when the companies which don't have that vision or mission statement, you pretty much think they're going to go to failure because they're operating just without any purpose. So that's the part we need to make sure that once you have this goal, then you start making a plan to work towards this goal. And it also allows you to go and constantly revisit this goal as to what you are doing, how are you doing against this goal, and whether you're making positive improvements or whether you're making negative improvements when it comes to regarding this goal. And some of the simple questions I will ask my brothers here to think about when they are dealing with their own personal lives is, you got to ask the question, right? Who do you want to be? You have to ask the question, what do I want to be when I grow up? You know, and then you also want to say, if somebody comes and asks you in an elevator speech, tell me in 60 seconds, what do you have to say about yourself? What would you say about your own self? And then the third question you always got to ask about is, how do you want people to remember you? And I talked about this story last time, right, where somebody died, or the guy was pretty grumpy, and the only memory people had about him was that uncle was always grumpy all the time. That was the only memory of this person who served 65 years in the community, but the only memory of that person was that the person was grumpy. So you have to decide for yourself, what do you want people to say about you after you're gone? And that goes with the goal and what time you have and how are you effectively using your time. So you should make sure that always keep the end in mind first, and then have your actions drive your behavior. Now, this is such an interesting hadith that I was reading yesterday, but I'll tell you about it. So this is a hadith from our Holy Prophet Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He says, take advantage of 5 before 5. Take advantage of 5 before 5. The first one he says is that you take advantage of your youth before you become old. Number 2, he says, take advantage of your health before you fall sick. Number 3, he says, take advantage of your wealth before you become poor. Number 4, he says, is take advantage of your free time before you become busy with this worldly things. And then last but not least, he says, take advantage of your life before you die. It's a profound, if you want it, purpose. Like, look, I am getting goosebumps just talking about this particular hadith, right? So if you think about it, if you haven't taken advantage of these 5 things, and then you end up on the other end of the scale, and then you say, I didn't do anything. All the time is in front of you right now. And there is no point to start except from now going forward. The other thing is, I'm talking about third habit now, right? So the third habit is, now I describe you in a different way, right? So we used to have this thing where I would have managers come up to me and say, I am so busy, I'm running around like a crazy person. I'm very busy. Now I have this going on, I have that going on, I have that going on. So we used to do this simple thing called a 4-quadrant. Right? It's also called my plate exercise. You can do any way you like, right? So we used to have them write down everything that they think they're working on, everything they need to do, everything they're working on, write down everything. And then we would make 2 lines, vertical line and a horizontal line. On the horizontal line, the right side of the scale would be based on importance, very important. The left side would be not important at all. Right? And then on the vertical line, you would write easy to do, and the bottom part would be not easy to do. Very, very simple, right? You're just drawing 4 quadrants, right? Where the quadrants are based on difficulty and ease, and based on importance and not important. Now, which quadrant you think you should be doing the first things first? The things that are easy to do and important, you should be knocking them out right then and there, not even wait to ask somebody's permission to do it. You should do it right then and there. The second item, the second most important thing is things that are important but going to take a long time or are not easy to do. That's where you should be spending most of your time planning how to work on it, and you do those things. The third quadrant is things that are urgent, like that you need to do it, but they are not important at all. Those things you can delegate to other people or postpone it. And then the last one is not important and not urgent to do. So why are you doing it? There's a lot of times, we sit in gatherings and then, people talk about it, I'm doing this and I'm doing this and I'm doing this. And then you start thinking about like, where is this important? Or why is this something you need to be working on? Because your time is the only currency you have. Wal asr innal insana lafi khusr. If you're working on things that are not important and not something that is urgent, don't need to be doing, why are you doing? The things you need to be working on is the things that are important to you, have a purpose to you. That's where you should be spending most of your time in, right? So you should be spending your time first knocking out everything that is easy to do and important, and then most of your time after you're done with that should be spent on planning to do the things that are important and that are not easy to do. It's all about personal integrity, right? At the end of the day, like, I know most of you will go from home and you'll say, nice khutbah, great to hear from you, and then we turn around and go back, do the same thing over and over again. Next week, come back, come here, listen to this, like, yep, good advice, heard it. I used to meet a lot of people, and used to mentor a lot of employees. They'd always come to me, like, tell me which book to read, or how many books should I read. I will always scratch my head, like, why do you need to read books? The first thing is, I said, okay, so which book are you reading? So I'm reading this book right now. So I said, how about this? I'm going to come meet you in 3 months. So yep, because I meet him every quarter. So I'll come back in 3 months. I said, how about this? Take one concept from that book, not the whole book. Just take one concept from that book and apply it in your work and your personal life. And then come show me 3 months later. And by the way, 95% of the times, I would come back, I'd have the same conversation. How many books should I read? And how can I become great? So it's about doing things, right? Doing things. Learn something and apply it in your life. That's how you get better. You don't get better by going the other way, right? And in Islam, right, our Prophet says, the most beloved of deeds to Allah are those that are consistent, even if they're small. You do something that is good, khair, even if it's a small thing, but if you do it consistently, Allah loves those people. So we should always prioritize performing good deeds. I had 7 things wrote down, but I do think I want to talk about the last one, then inshallah I'll come back next time, re-summarize and finish the 7 inshallah in the next khutbah, right? One of the things that we as Muslims, as individuals, especially in the India-Pakistan culture, right? Once we reach a certain age, we think the world has ended for us and everything I needed to do that I could do in my life is done. Now I'm not going to do anything. And I'm going to talk about this in terms of the habit of actually having the habit of continuous self-improvement and continuous self-development. There is a hadith from our Holy Prophet that if you have to even go to China to get knowledge, you should get knowledge, right? So and the thing is that you should always strive for getting additional knowledge and ilm. You always need to make sure, I used to look at resumes, right? And if there was 2 resumes having the same bachelor's degree, same qualification, same grades, who do you think I'm hiring? Then I'm going to go look at what else do they do, what else are their extracurricular activities. That's the same thing with college admission too. They're looking at what else extra you're constantly doing in your life that adds more value to you as a human being. And that is looking at a company, but I'm talking to you as individuals. So at no age is the age to actually stop learning and making yourself better. And this is something that is, we say in Quran, oh Allah, increase me in my knowledge. We say that all the time. But the thing is, we recite it, but how many times we turn around? How is Allah going to increase your knowledge? Unless you go learn it. Right? Allah says, I started the khutbah with the first ayat that Allah is not going to improve you or make a change in you unless you make the change in yourself. So if you want Allah to be happy with you, the best way to do is to actually go ahead and improve your knowledge. I'll end this with this. Imam Ali says in the Najul Balagha, he says, acquire knowledge. Acquire knowledge because it enables one to differentiate between the truth and falsehood. I was reading a comment today on WhatsApp where somebody made a comment, right? And the comment was centered around this very same issue, right? How do you guys know what is the difference between truth and falsehood unless you go and improve your own knowledge? And then he goes ahead and he says, because it helps you in achieving your objectives. That knowledge helps you distinguish between what is right and wrong and helps you achieve your own objectives. And then, once you know that knowledge, it makes you zealous to apply what you have learned. This is the same example I was talking about these people who aren't mentored. And what was I saying? Learn, at least take one thing from that book and try to apply it in your life. If we say, Rabbi zidni ilma, oh Allah, increase me in my knowledge, how are you going to improve your knowledge unless you go learn? So this is the thing that when I said, and I started the khutbah with this, that, it starts with you individually. If you want to make yourself successful in life so you can actually help the entire community, you need to make yourself better than the person standing next to you. And the only way I know that you need to make yourself better is improving your skill sets, improving your knowledge, and then being able to apply that skill set and knowledge in life so you can make your life better. If you can make your life better, you can make others' life also better.